Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir à tous. Merci d'être ici. The Prime Minister spent much of the day meeting with the families of the victims of Ukrainian Airlines Flight 752, alongside his Parliamentary Secretary, Mr. Omar Agabra. They were deeply moved by what they heard in these meetings. I know families and Canadians have a lot of questions, and I can assure you that we will not rest until we get to the bottom of this. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a national tragedy. In a way, we all know the victims of this crash. The colleague that made you laugh on Monday mornings, the professor who helped you become the person you are today, the friend you could always count on, the parent you admired, the child you watched grow up. These people help us make who we are. Losing them like this unexpectedly and inexplicably is devastating for each and every Canadian. It is a tremendous loss, not only for their families, but for the entire country. In the days since the crash, there has been an outpouring of support from Canadians across the country. Vigils were held, stories were shared, messages of love and support were sent. I hope the families can find some comfort in knowing that the entire country is grieving with them during this extraordinarily difficult time. Je tenais également à m'adresser aux Canadiens et aux Canadiennes aujourd'hui pour faire une mise à jour sur la situation qui continue d'évoluer. Depuis mercredi, notre gouvernement travaille sans relâche pour obtenir les réponses à nos questions et surtout pour appuyer les familles qui sont dans le deuil. To that end, I have a few updates to share with Canadians tonight. First, the Prime Minister of Canada has asked the Clerk of the Privy Council to set up an emergency task force of senior officials to ensure that the families and loved ones of the victims have the support that they need. Second, our government will be setting up a dedicated process to address any visa issues for those affected by the crash. It goes without saying that these extraordinary circumstances and our government is mobilizing as quickly as possible to provide more support to families, many of whom are currently separated from their loved ones. Our priority at this time is providing support to the affected families. They need us, and we are looking at all possible options to do this. The Prime Minister has also mandated his Parliamentary Secretary, Omar Al-Gabra, to work directly with the families as they navigate this very, very difficult time. As far as the investigation is concerned, we repeat our call for a full and thorough investigation. We have a team of officials from Global Affairs Canada and the Transportation Safety Board in place in Ankara, in Turkey. To date, the Iranians have issued 2 visas, and we expect the other visas will be granted soon so we can begin providing consular services, help with the identification of the victims, and obviously participate in the investigation. Finally, the Prime Minister and I have spoken with premiers as well as opposition leaders over the past few days. All Canadians should know that we stand united in this difficult time. This, like I said before, is nothing short of a national tragedy, and all levels of governments are working together to support families and their loved ones, and obviously the loved ones of the victims to ensure that all the questions that they may have would be answered. The Prime Minister also just concluded the 5th meeting of the Incident Response Group. He will also be speaking with Prime Minister Abe of Japan later this evening. Canada has established the International Coordination and Response Group for families of the victims of Flight 752. This group brings together representatives of Ukraine, Sweden, Afghanistan, and the United Kingdom, who are all grieving and also searching for answers. Earlier today, I led the first call with our partners. All participating countries reaffirmed the need for a full and transparent investigation into the causes of the fatal crash. Au cours des prochains jours, le Premier ministre et la vice-première ministre du Canada participeront à des événements commémoratifs et rencontreront des familles de victimes à travers le pays. Le Premier ministre et moi continuons également à nous entretenir avec plusieurs dirigeants internationaux ainsi qu'avec nos partenaires. Les conversations se poursuivront tant et aussi longtemps que nous n'avons pas de réponse à nos questions. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, Canada's objective throughout this process are very, very clear. Closure, transparency, accountability, and justice. Canadians can rest assured that our government will continue to do everything it can to achieve those objectives. Comme le Premier ministre l'a dit hier, les objectifs du Canada dans cette affaire sont très, très clairs. Nous voulons que toute la lumière soit faite dans ce dossier dans un esprit de transparence et de justice, et nous voulons que les familles, bien évidemment, trouvent du réconfort. So one important thing I would like to add before I conclude is that the number of Canadian victims now stand at 57. Une mise à jour importante avant de prendre vos questions. J'aimerais vous annoncer que le nombre de victimes canadiennes est maintenant établi à 57. Encore une fois, merci d'être là. Il me fera plaisir de prendre vos questions.
All right. We're going to start with Mia Rabson, the Canadian Press, and then we're going to go over to Marc Cabou of Radio-Canada.
Can you maybe explain that last number, the number of victims, and is it still 138 people that were still heading to Canada?
Yeah, what you saw is that this is a very fluid situation. We said that from the get-go in terms of identifying the number of victims, which would be Canadians on board. Based on the most recent information we have received, we were able to establish that the number of Canadian victims was not 63 but 57. This is based on additional information we had about birth date and comparing the travel documents that people were traveling on when they boarded the flight.
It's still 138 people were traveling to Canada?
That's the number. That number has not changed to the best of my knowledge, but the number of Canadian victims have gone from 63 to 57.
And also, do you have any concerns about the reports that the site has been cleared, that it's not secure, that maybe there's scavengers on the site, and if that's happening, what Canada might be able to actually do when you get there?
Well, obviously, I'm concerned. Like all Canadians, we're looking at the image that are coming, and the first thing that we need to do, and I called upon the Iranian government, is to issue those visas. We have our rapid response team, which is currently based in Ankara. This is a team of 10 people from Global Affairs. We have 2 officials from the Transport Safety Board of Canada, which are also on their way to Ankara. We need visas for these people to get on the ground, to have eyes on the ground and boots on the ground to be able to provide the assistance and be able to provide, obviously, consular services to Canadians. To date, as we speak, the latest information I got is that 2 visas have been issued to our team. So there remain 10 visas that we want to, that we need, obviously, for our people to move into Tehran. And I've been calling the Foreign Minister of Turkey today to seek his assistance as well to make sure that the Iranian embassy in Ankara would be issuing the visas as quickly as possible, because we all know that in circumstances like the one we're facing, time is of the essence. Every hours matter, and we are pursuing that vigorously with all the authorities and partners around the world.
Marc Godbout, Radio-Canada, and then we'll go to Ryan Tumulty, National Post.
Allez-y, monsieur.
Monsieur Champagne, depuis 24 heures, est-ce que des informations supplémentaires à propos de l'enquête ont été communiquées au gouvernement canadien? Et au moment où on se parle, pourriez-vous nous dire exactement qu'est-ce qu'il en est de l'accès au BST? Est-ce que cet accès-là auquel pourrait avoir droit le BST en Iran est connu à l'heure où on se parle? Est-il suffisant? Si oui.
Écoutez, évidemment, l'enquête, il y a déjà une équipe ukrainienne, comme vous savez, qui est sur place. Ce que je comprends, il y a environ 50 officiels ukrainiens qui sont déjà sur place à Téhéran. Évidemment, les discussions se poursuivent avec les autorités iraniennes. C'est pour ça qu'en vertu du protocole de l'OACI, le Canada peut et veut et doit participer à l'enquête, évidemment, qui sera tenue. C'est pour ça que quand on a créé ce groupe de coordination internationale qui représente les pays où il y a des victimes, on veut parler d'une seule voix pour justement avoir cette force-là en disant que le gouvernement de l'Ukraine, de la Suède, de l'Afghanistan et du Royaume-Uni, évidemment avec le Canada, va être capable de parler d'une voix, parce que l'objectif de la création de ce groupe-là, c'est d'abord de parler d'une voix au niveau de l'enquête, pour avoir tous les accès nécessaires à la coalition, je vous dirais, qui a été formée. Et deuxièmement, pour être capable aussi de communiquer avec les victimes, parce qu'il faut se rappeler que la première chose, notre premier devoir, c'est face aux familles des victimes qui ont beaucoup de questions légitimes et auxquelles on doit répondre. Donc, évidemment, en formant un groupe comme celui-là, ça nous permet d'avoir de l'information. Aujourd'hui, l'appel qu'on a eu a duré, je pense, près d'une heure. Donc, ça nous permet d'obtenir l'information qui circule. Évidemment, ceux qui sont sur place présentement, c'est les représentants ukrainiens. Alors, c'est pour ça que depuis les dernières heures, avec le premier ministre, avec le gouvernement du Canada, notre première priorité, c'est d'obtenir les visas pour permettre à nos enquêteurs de pouvoir être sur place, et aussi de permettre au personnel canadien de pouvoir être sur place pour offrir des services consulaires et permettre d'identifier aussi les victimes.
Le compte-rendu de la Maison-Blanche cet après-midi précise que le secrétaire Pompeo a abordé avec vous la question de mandat accru de l'OTAN dans la région. Est-ce que vous avez reçu une demande concrète lors de cet appel? Est-ce que le Canada a l'intention de dire oui? Est-ce qu'il y a des conditions s'il dit oui?
Alors, la majeure partie de ma discussion avec le secrétaire Pompeo, vous comprendrez, dans une journée de tragédie, dans une tragédie nationale comme celle qu'on vit au Canada, était surtout sur, évidemment, la question de l'écrasement de l'avion. On a eu la chance de parler, évidemment, de la question de l'Irak. On a parlé aussi de la mission. Mais je vous dirais, ce que vous avez vu dans le compte-rendu, c'est essentiellement ce qui s'est dit. Évidemment, le président américain hier a parlé d'avoir un rôle accru pour l'OTAN. Alors, il y avait une réunion aujourd'hui à Washington des représentants de l'OTAN avec le secrétaire Pompeo, et on aura la chance, évidemment, de pouvoir savoir ce qui s'est discuté durant cette réunion-là. Et ensuite de ça, on pourra vous revenir sur les prochaines étapes et les actions que le Canada voudra entretenir.
Ryan Tumulty, National Post, and then we're going to go to Emily Bergeron.
Minister, I'm wondering, the Ukrainians have 45 investigators on the ground in Iran. Why are we only looking to have 2? And I'm also wondering, when our investigators get on the ground, should they get these visas, are you confident they're going to have access to everything they need in terms of the wreckage and the crash site, as well as the data from the black box?
Well, time will tell. You know, I cannot speak for the Iranian government. I think the world is watching the Iranian authorities as to the access they will be providing. As we said, we want a full and complete investigation. That's why the International Coordination and Response Group want to speak with one voice, because not only Canadians want to know in Canada, but you have families across the world, and I would say you have also Iranian families who want to know what really happened on that night. And therefore, we are pushing, obviously, for a more active role for the Canadian investigator because they have the knowledge, they have the technical know-how to be providing assistance with the black box, with also interpreting what may have happened. So I hope that the government of Iran welcome our offer to provide additional assistance in getting to the truth. Like you just pointed out, obviously it starts with the visas because until and unless we can have our people physically on the ground at the site, at the meeting, we are obviously not in a position to have all the influence we want. So we have been stressing to the Iranian government to issue these visas as quickly as possible. And tomorrow morning, I will have even more to know because obviously today that was a holiday, I understand, in Ankara. The Iranian embassy is opening up in a few hours. And we do hope to be able to report to Canadians that all the visas that we have been asking for have been issued.
But only the 2 investigators from Canada.
Well, so far, I think under the protocol, if you look at the protocol of the OIC, it says about 1 observer that could be participating. The fact that we are sending 2, I think, is a good sign. And hopefully, as you know, we have to work with the Iranian authorities. My understanding is that they've extended the invitation to 2 individuals from the Transport Safety Board. So we're going to go with that. And if there was a need to supplement in terms of expertise, technical know-how, we have made clear to the Iranian authorities through the coordination group as well, to the Ukrainian government that Canada stands ready to provide more assistance as the case might be, because we believe that the only thing that the international community now wants is answers. They want the truth, and the way to do that is through a full investigation.
Emily Bergeron.
Monsieur Champagne, bonsoir. 2 visas délivrés en 3 jours par l'Iran. L'Iran semble accorder ces visas au compte-gouttes. Comment pouvez-vous dire qu'il démontre des signes d'ouverture et des signes encourageants à la lumière de cette lenteur-là?
Ben, je vous dirais que la dernière fois qu'il y a eu un ministre des Affaires étrangères qui s'est entretenu avec les autorités iraniennes, on parle près d'une décennie. Alors, vous comprendrez que dans des circonstances, le fait que j'ai pu m'entretenir, je pense, pendant 20 ou 30 minutes avec mon homologue iranien, où on a parlé de différentes choses, où je lui ai demandé, évidemment, d'émettre les visas dont on a besoin pour envoyer nos spécialistes là-bas. Le fait que, ce que je comprends, la sous-ministre a eu des discussions aussi, la sous-ministre Morgan, ma sous-ministre a eu des discussions avec des officiels du côté iranien. Le soir, quand j'ai parlé au ministre des Affaires étrangères de l'Iran, il avait déjà identifié une personne en particulier avec qui le gouvernement canadien pourrait travailler. J'ai aussi parlé aujourd'hui avec le ministre des Affaires étrangères de la Suisse, qui représente les intérêts iraniens au Canada. J'ai parlé aussi au ministre des Affaires étrangères la veille de l'Italie, qui représente les intérêts canadiens en Iran. Donc vraiment, il y a une coordination internationale pour faire avancer ces choses-là. Mais vous comprendrez, en absence de relations diplomatiques pendant près d'une décennie, bien, il y a des choses comme ça qu'on doit établir. Mais ce que je dis, c'est ce que j'ai senti, parce que vous savez, la diplomatie, c'est plus un art qu'une science. Ce que j'ai senti lors de l'appel que j'ai eu avec le ministre des Affaires étrangères de l'Iran, c'est qu'il y avait une ouverture. Je pense que le fait que le sous-ministre et ma sous-ministre ont eu des contacts pour émettre des visas, parce qu'il faut échanger l'information, le fait qu'il y a déjà 2 visas qui ont été émis, ça me donne espoir qu'on pourra rapidement résoudre le cas des 10 autres visas qu'on a besoin.
L'Iran annoncerait demain les causes, selon elle, sa version des faits, là, des causes de l'écrasement d'avions. À l'heure actuelle, Téhéran nie la thèse du missile. À quoi vous vous attendez demain?
Écoutez, dans ce domaine-là, je pense qu'on prend l'information quand elle vient. Certainement, je pense que ce que vous dites, ça met en lumière la nécessité d'avoir une enquête complète parce que justice doit être faite. Les questions légitimes des Canadiens et des Canadiennes, ces gens-là ont besoin de réponses. C'est pour ça que je vous disais en particulier, quand on a créé ce groupe de coordination internationale, ça nous permet de parler d'une voix. C'est non seulement maintenant juste le Canada, mais c'est le Canada, l'Ukraine, la Suède, l'Afghanistan et le Royaume-Uni qui parlent d'une voix en disant « Nous demandons d'avoir une enquête indépendante, d'avoir une enquête complète, d'avoir évidemment les experts qui peuvent être là pour faire la lumière. Et c'est en faisant la lumière qu'on sera capable de démontrer effectivement les causes de l'écrasement de l'avion.
Glenn McGregor, CTV, and then Ray Fillon, TVA.
Sir.
Minister, are you concerned that the U.S. did not give Canada notice in advance of the assassination of General Soleimani? And if so, did you express that or even discuss that when you talked to Secretary of State Pompeo today?
I won't get into the detail of what I discussed specifically with the Secretary. As you know, today our discussion was primarily around what happened with the flight. As you would understand, this is a national tragedy for Canada. So we spent the bulk of our time talking about the downing of the aircraft. We also talk about Iraq. But I would say that we reminded ourselves both that the U.S. presence in Iraq is essential to be able to provide the stability and security that the Iraqi people have wanted to go to prosperity. You know that I've been speaking twice to the Speaker of Parliament in Iraq. I spoke to the Foreign Minister. And in each of these conversations, they reminded me, because the question is the why. Why do we have troops on the ground in the NATO mission or in the coalition, is really because the Iraqi people want to have the democratic and economic reform that they so wish. So we are there to provide security. By providing security, we provide stability and eventually prosperity. So the discussion was around the fact that the U.S. is a key element to make sure that we can protect our force, provide the logistics, and play a positive role, because I think everyone wants de-escalation in the region, and I think Canada can play a positive role in that.
Without repeating what you told my colleague about the need for a transparent investigation, which your government has said repeatedly, when you hear news
and I would say the world, not just Canada.
Fair. When you hear what Iran is saying today, saying it doesn't believe a missile was involved, what does that tell you about whether they're approaching this investigation in good faith?
Well, time will tell, and the world is watching. You know, the statement made by the Prime Minister yesterday about the cause is based on intelligence that we have. And obviously, that's why we want to go to the investigation. We have been clear with them that we want to cooperate, that the world wants to know. But I think that over the course of the next days, you're right, we'll see if they are genuine in their interest to have a full and transparent investigation. There's issue about who's going to look at the black box. We've offered assistance. I think transparency is what the world, the international community is looking for now. And hopefully the government of Iran and the authorities will see that by being transparent, they will provide the certainty and the answers. And I've said to the beginning, it's about the families, not just the Canadian ones, but I suspect that if you're a family in Iran and you have one of your loved one on that plane, you want to know what really happened. So we have been putting out what we believe in to be the cause of this airliner crashing. And obviously now it's going to be for Iran to hopefully take the right path and allow for this complete and full investigation.
Ray Fillon, TVA, and then we're going to go to David Cochran.
M. Champagne, comment vous voulez des réponses, mais comment vous qualifiez l'attitude, la collaboration de l'Iran?
Écoutez, je pense que dans les prochaines heures, les prochains jours, on sera capable de déterminer le chemin que le gouvernement de l'Iran entend prendre dans cette affaire-là. Évidemment, pour l'instant, on est sur la question des visas parce que c'est ça qui nous permet de pouvoir offrir des services consulaires. Ensuite de ça, ça nous permet évidemment de faire partie de l'enquête. Alors, je pense que les prochaines heures, et on s'est engagé, le Premier ministre et moi, à être très transparent avec les Canadiens et les Canadiennes, de venir devant vous régulièrement pour vous donner l'information qu'on a, les discussions qu'on a avec les différents partenaires. Le Premier ministre du Canada va parler au Premier ministre japonais ce soir. J'ai un appel avec mon homologue français durant le week-end, le haut représentant européen. Il y a vraiment une coalition internationale qui pousse dans la même direction. Et je pense que c'est à l'Iran maintenant de démontrer si elle entend coopérer dans cette enquête-là et de faire toute la lumière. Parce que ce que les gens veulent, c'est qu'on fasse toute la lumière sur les causes. Le monde est en train de regarder, le monde a besoin de réponses à ces questions-là.
L'intégrité du site de l'écrasement? Ça vous inquiète? Ça vous préoccupe?
Bien, évidemment, comme vous, on a vu des images qui ont circulé sur les réseaux internationaux aujourd'hui. Ce que je comprends, sur la base des informations que j'ai obtenues aujourd'hui dans les discussions que j'ai eues avec différents homologues, c'est que suite à ces images-là ou suite à des événements qui se sont produits, ce que je comprends, c'est que à l'heure où on se parle, les autorités iraniennes auraient maintenant sécurisé ce site-là. Donc, ce que je comprends, c'est que le site maintenant est sécurisé et je pense qu'on doit tout faire, évidemment, pour faire dans les meilleures pratiques parce qu'on sait que dans les premières heures d'un événement comme celui-là, sécuriser le site en question est très important. Ce que je comprends, c'est que avec l'enquête internationale, avec les demandes qui ont été faites, ce que je comprends présentement, c'est que l'Iran a maintenant sécurisé le site et certains des éléments peuvent être déplacés dans un hangar pour reconstituer, évidemment, ce qui aurait pu se produire et les éléments de preuve qu'on pouvait trouver sur ce site-là.
Okay. Unfortunately, due to time, Dave, you're going to be the last one.
Okay, Minister, I just want to pick up on
Sure.
that point. You say the Iranians have apparently secured the crash site, but you said you want an investigation of transparency and accountability that brings closure, but we have seen that most, if not all of the debris has been removed before we're even into the country, that scavengers and a bulldozer have been on that site, but now you say it's been secured. So given what
Let
you
me
see...
be clear, they've been secured since we... So the authorities that were on the ground, in light of what you just said, and we understand that some of these debris have been moved to an hangar at the airport to reconstruct the scene. That's my understanding. And as I told you, we don't have boots on the ground, so we work with assessments and what we receive. So what we understand is that some of that has been moved to hangar, what remains on the location, based on what you saw and what we saw, the team that is on the ground, so I would say the people of the representative in particular of Ukraine and others have called on the Iranian to make sure that following what you just described, that there would be police officers to preserve and to prevent exactly what you just said.
Okay, you kind of jumped in before I got to my
Oh,
question.
sorry.
So no, it's
Apologies.
okay. But guess what I wanted to ask is that given that sequence of events and what we know, how much confidence do you have that the integrity of this investigation is intact and that Canadians can have confidence in its conclusions based on what appears to be a compromised site?
Well, our experts will be able to tell. You know, that's why I say we have demanded as a international coordination and response group for Iran to use best practices. There are very well established best practices in the world when you have a crash site like that. We demand and obviously expect the Iranian government to follow that. The best way for us to be able to answer specifically to your question is when we're going to have our experts who are going to be able to go to this hangar, are going to be able to go to this crash site and identify and assess whether best practice was followed and what could be the conclusion following that. So that's why I always come back to the visas, because until and unless I can have, or we can have people on the ground, we have to rely on partners and we have to rely on information that we're getting to make sure that everything that could be done is done to protect the integrity of the investigation.
So given the absence of the visas right now and given the public statements and reports coming out of Iran that they may announce the cause tomorrow, that they deny that a missile could have even been involved, what's your level of trust right now in the Iranians that they're doing this investigation properly to come to a proper conclusion?
Well, my wish is to have our specialists on the ground as quickly as possible, because the Transport Safety Board, we have these specialists who will be able to make that assessment. I would like to hear from them before we start speculating about what may happen and what are the consequences of what may have happened.
But do you trust them?
I would say that for the time being, I watch like you the facts. What I want to have is an expert assessment. As soon as we have people on the ground, we will be able to tell Canadians what we hear and be able to provide updates. And that's why the investigation is so crucial. And that's why by creating, I think, the International Coordination and Response Group, that's the best, I would say, at least it's one of the best things we could do to make sure that we speak with one voice, make sure that everyone comes together, we are coordinated. That group, the principals will have weekly calls, our officials will have daily calls on this so that we are able to provide all the information, pull that information, and pull in the same direction, which is the one, like the Prime Minister said, we want full accountability, we want answers to these questions, and the world is watching what the Iranian government is doing now.
Thank you very much.
Merci tout le monde. Bonne soirée. Thank you. Allez-y.
Le Canada aurait-il aimé souhaiter avoir un préavis avant... Je vais répéter la question, je recommence. Alors, est-ce que le Canada aurait souhaité avoir un préavis de la part des États-Unis avant l'attaque contre le général Soleimani?
C'est certain, quand on travaille dans une coalition avec nos partenaires, on est toujours en coordination. Plus on peut être coordonné dans les actions, parce que la première chose pour aller au fond de votre question, c'est de savoir comment on peut mieux protéger les hommes et les femmes qui servent présentement en Irak. Alors, toutes les mesures qui peuvent être prises pour assurer la santé, la sécurité des Canadiens qui sont déployés présentement en Irak pour aider le peuple irakien, évidemment, c'est des mesures qu'on favorise. Merci tout le monde. Bonne soirée, bon week-end.